Garry hasn't seen.
I'd say good, but not great. Good, not. It was, yeah. Like, I definitely should have trained differently to fight someone who had such a longer reach than me. Yeah, I just didn't fight properly. Like, if I knew what I knew now, I would have done everything completely differently.
KSI celebrates with his mom after beating Clay's temper.
What can I mean, I celebrate with my mum all the time, so I guess it's kind of just like meh. No, but it sounds deep saying meh, isn't it? I would say it's a career high, as if like I've never done it before.
KSI versus Pineda.
I'd say meh as well. Yeah, man, I wanted a challenge and he just didn't give it to me. It was really annoying. But I mean, where was the Pineda that beat his other opponents? Like, what the hell? Like, why is he turning up for these guys? And then when it comes to me, I hit him once and he's like, F this. KSI versus Joe Fournier. I'd say that's a career high. Yeah, that was a big moment. I'd say a lot of the new fans won't understand how big of a moment that was at the time. Yeah, that was huge. That was like, for the first time, influencer boxing at that level. Nuts, yeah.
KSI versus Logan Paul 2.
KSI, I'm putting that as GOAT. That was huge for me, man. Like, because, that wasn't my fight weight as well. And, I really dug in to make sure I grinded that win, man. And to get it, especially after receiving the uppercut of dreams from him. And to still continue, yeah, man, that was huge for me. And, yeah, that was a big moment. We celebrated and partied hard after.
So if you didn't know who he was, you know a little bit more about him now. I'm not going to go into Joe Fournier because in my opinion, he is here as a stepping stone en route to bigger fights and en route to more money that KSI and Logan Paul and Jake Paul and Tommy Fury and all these other influencer boxers. That's what they call themselves now, not YouTube boxers, but influencer boxers. And they do influence people. They influence young kids. My son doesn't get hyped up for other big boxing matches. In fact, he's not been interested in many over the years, other than when Anthony Joshua or Tyson Fury have big fights. He's not been interested in other things. He wasn't interested in Tank Davis against Garcia a few weeks ago, but he's interested in this one. He's interested when Jake Paul announces his next opponent. He was very interested in the fight against Tommy Fury and was disappointed when Jake lost. So these children, these youngsters are invested, and if you can bring them in, they will convince the parents to pay for this. The parents will pay for this. This fight is on DAZN tonight and it is going to do big money, and therefore it gets covered here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network as part of the fight show. KSI is the 2-9 favourite to win this fight. It's 10-1 on the draw, and Joe Fournier is available here at 3-1. KSI is at 4-5, minus 125 to win via knockout. He's at 5-2 via decision. Fournier is at 4-1 with the decision via TKO KO, and the decision is at 7-1. It is a 6-round fight. KSI is at 5-2 to win it in rounds 1-3, and also 5-2 to win it in rounds 4-6. Fournier is available here at 8-1 for rounds 1-3 and at 8-1 for rounds 4-6 as well. The over-under here is 5 rounds. Is it going to go 5 rounds? Under 5 rounds is 10-11, and 5th round or over is at 4-5. If you want to bet it goes to the distance, so the full 6 rounds, that's actually available at 2-1. So it's actually under 5 rounds, and 5th round or over means it's 4 rounds, sorry. So at the 4th round, once the 5th round starts, you then cash your money. And if you can navigate the next 6 minutes, that price jumps up from 4-5 to 2-1 plus 200. I think I would rather play that by taking the gamble on the bigger price and possibly hedging at some point in play. But I think if this finishes within the distance, it's going to finish early. I think it's going to finish early because I think this is another KSI hand-picked opponent en route to the bigger money fights, which I mentioned, which are Tommy Fury, another one with Logan Paul, who he co-owns Prime with. So that Prime energy drink, who now sponsors the UFC, this is the co-owner of it. He recently appeared at WWE WrestleMania with Logan Paul. So he wants to fight Jake Paul, but he's already fought Logan Paul and they own an energy drink together, and potentially they could fight again. But he also wants to fight Tommy Fury, who beat Jake Paul, but the biggest fight is him versus Jake Paul, despite the fact that Tommy Fury beat Jake Paul. So it's quite crazy how this all actually works out and where we're at with this. But the main thing I think you need to know is what is best for business, what makes the most money. So if you just follow the money here, and obviously that didn't 100% work out for the Jake Paul fight against Tommy Fury, but ultimately it did work out previously in all the Jake Paul fights. And still, Fury and Paul, if they do a rematch, that was a close enough fight for that to generate more money again. But if you continue to follow the money and you continue to back outcomes that will be more profitable, such as tonight, KSI looking as good as possible en route to beating Joe Fournier, you'll end up making a profit here, despite the fact that you may or may not like suffering through influencer/YouTube boxing. So how do we actually make money here tonight? How do we make a pick here on this fight? I think for me, it's simple. You end up taking KSI simply to win via TKO KO with a sprinkle on him getting it done early. Joe Fournier, he claims to be a professional boxer, an actual boxer and a businessman, but he's just somebody who's taken up boxing via his fitness business. He had an exhibition fight with David Haye on the 11th of September 2021 and lost by a unanimous decision. This is the next best fight, or the next biggest thing that he's done. He took up professional boxing in 2015. He is signed to Haymaker Promotions. He has a record which stands at 9 wins and 1 no contest, with all of his wins coming via TKO KO. He has some wins on his resume, but it's absolutely nobody that you would recognise, and make no mistake about it, he is the B-side of this fight. Now, for KSI, he's looking to go on and fight Jake Paul and Tommy Fury. Tommy Fury would beat KSI quite easily, in my opinion, and I think Jake Paul would take care of him as well. This is a huge step up to go up to that level to take on a Tommy Fury, just like it was a huge step up for Jake Paul, but Jake Paul was almost ready for the test. KSI, I think, is a level below that. And don't get me wrong, there are levels and levels and levels above Jake Paul, and there are levels and levels above Tommy Fury as well. Tommy Fury is too good to be messing around with these types of boxers. But if you saw his cardio in the Jake Paul fight, he's nowhere near good enough to go up either. Tommy Fury will never be a top 15 fighter, so he may as well stay here, beat these guys and make his money here. He's not Tyson Fury, he's Tommy Fury at the end of the day. And the fact that he couldn't get Jake Paul out of there and was put on the floor by him and was gassing by the end of the rounds tells me that Tommy Fury is the best at this level, but is in no position to move up. Jake Paul, he's done very well for himself, and I think he could beat everybody but Tommy Fury. But in my opinion, we've probably seen the best level influencer fight that we're going to see, and everybody coming up is just looking to make that Tommy Fury Jake Paul money. And don't get me wrong, KSI is already making his own money. He has a huge following, but after he gets past Joe Fournier and he does finally move up to those fights against Tommy Fury and Jake Paul and stops fighting these tomato cans, which I do think Fournier will be tonight, I don't think there's any upward trajectory for KSI, despite the fact he'll try to convince you that he has the power and the skill set of a real boxer. But I'm going to take KSI to get it done here tonight in the via TKO within the distance at the price of 45 minus 125. Fournier does have the backing of David Haye, and he does have more pedigree than KSI's other opponents. But as I said, they were tomato cans that really didn't belong in there. KSI has more experience when it comes to big fights, and he does hold some key advantages here when you're looking at both speed and power. And I think he makes that tell within these 6 rounds. I think within these 6 rounds, he finds that shot and manages to win again, look good, build up the hype for a future fight with Tommy Fury or Jake Paul, and all the money that everybody wants to make from this will stay intact, and all the kids can look forward to bigger fights in the future. So KSI via TKO KO is my lean here for this one. Before we move on to talking about a little bit of UFC, let me quickly tell you guys about Talkify. Life is full of what ifs. So what if you try something new when it comes to dating? Talkify is a new way to meet other serious singles. What if they help you find what you're looking for? And they could. Talkify is the country's #1 modern matchmaking service, and it's designed to help you achieve relationship success. Talkify is committed to finding your match. 80% of clients meet their person within the first 12 matches. And right now, Talkify is offering our listeners 20% off when you become a client at talkify.com/SGPN. That's Talkify, spelled TAWKIFY.com/SGPN for 20% off when you become a client. Talkify.com/SGPN. So now we're going to dip our feet into the UFC. I want to talk about two fights. The first one will be the main event, and then we're going to talk about another fight that I'm definitely interested in on this card. So the card is headlined by Jairzinho Rozenstruik going up against Gelton Almeida here tonight, and Rozenstruik is the 7-2 underdog here, with Almeida the overwhelming favourite at 1-4 -400. Rozenstruik is at 11-2 via TKO KO, 33-1 via submission, and 12-1 via a decision. Almeida is at 9-4 via TKO KO and only 21-20, so a shade of plus money, 105 to get this done via submission, and 6-1 via decision. The fight to go to distance is 5-1 yes and 1-7 no, so the bookies are very much expecting this to end inside the distance, with the total rounds markets priced up as follows: over 1.5 rounds at 5-4, under 1.5 rounds at 4-7, under 2.5 rounds at 1-3 -200, with over 2.5 rounds here at 5-2 +250, under 3.5 rounds at 1-4, over 3.5 rounds at 11-4, under 4.5 rounds at 1-7 -700, over 4.5 rounds at 4-1 +400. So if you look at those lines, you will come to the conclusion that we are expecting an early finish in the first round of the fight, and Gelton Almeida will be able to submit Jairzinho Rozenstruik here in this fight. I can't really tell you anything here that differs from what the lines are telling you. Sometimes when you're breaking down MMA, there's theories that you can apply to the fight, such as fighter X will win in this circumstance, or fighter Y will win in this circumstance. But in this case, the only way I see Rozenstruik winning is via a early KO by just catching Almeida. Other than that, I just feel that Almeida out-grapples in here for this fight. This feels like a very easy outcome to call, and the lines tell you that as well. Rozenstruik is a fearsome KO artist, but I've seen nothing to suggest that he'll have an answer for what Almeida's going to do, which is going to be shooting for the takedown as early as he can. And I don't think that Rozenstruik's going to have any answers for that. So as much as I'd like to find a different play and go against what the lines are telling you, I do believe that this price is correct. The only way that we may see something different here in terms of Almeida winning could be if he takes him down and decides to go down the ground and pound route as opposed to securing a submission. That would be the only way, but pretty much certain that Almeida does get this done inside the distance. We didn't actually look at that price individually. Almeida to win this within rounds 1 to 5, also labelled as Almeida double chance, and you're looking for TKO KO or submission, that's available at 2 to 5. So less than -200 you're getting for that. So not really too much value here in this fight. It is seen as a one-sided fight. Almeida is 18-2 and has finished all of his victories inside the distance. He has 7 TKO KO wins and 11 via submission. So I think this isn't really a fight that I want to get involved in because there isn't too much value. And even if you're taking Almeida via submission, you are only getting 21-20, so plus 105 there on that outcome. The fight I want to talk about here on this card is Ian Machado Garry going up against Daniel Rodriguez. Now, Ian Garry is the 4-11 favourite to win this. He's actually at a better price in some places, but But 4-11 where I'm looking, whereas Daniel Rodriguez is priced up at 21-10. Now, Ian Garry calls himself the future. He's supposed to be the future of MMA. Some people think that he's the next Conor McGregor. Some people say that he's a wannabe Conor McGregor. And he certainly doesn't have the resume of a McGregor. He does have some charisma. There's no doubt about that. But ultimately, he doesn't have the resume and he hasn't been putting his opponents to sleep, which is what UFC would want him to do at this stage, because he's been signed from Cage Warriors as a Cage Warrior champion and he's here to knock people out en route to the top 15 and he's here to be a big star. But I haven't seen those big star performances from Ian Garry as of yet. Garry has won by TKO KO in 6 of his 11 MMA victories, including his most recent win, but he needed to get that done in the late stages of the fight. So it wasn't a case of Garry getting the early knockout. He was in trouble in stages in that fight. He certainly lost the opening round, that's for sure, and that was supposed to be a tomato can. He's been brought up nicely and he looked great against earlier opposition, but this is a big step up. Rodriguez is tough and he will test him in a lot of areas, and it will be interesting to see if Ian Garry is good enough to pass this test. He will probably get in trouble against Rodriguez, who's more consistent and more confident counterpuncher than anybody that Garry has faced. But I think the kicks for Garry here will be key if he wants to catch the judges' attention en route to winning this via the scorecards. Now, if Garry does pass this test, he'll move up once again and he'll be in the top 15 and he'll start to fight the ranked fighters. But as I said, he was supposed to, in my opinion, look a little bit more impressive en route to getting into that top 15 than he has done. He's a significant favourite to win this fight, and I certainly wouldn't be backing him here. He has seen his last 3 fights go over 2.5 rounds, and also 5 of his last 6 fights have gone over 2.5 rounds, whilst Rodriguez has also seen 4 of his last 6 fights do the same. I'm more confident about taking the over here than I am taking Ian Garry, with the over 2.5 available for you here at the price of 7-10. And the fight to go the distance is available at 10-11. Yes, 10-11. No. I would be taking yes with a small sprinkle on Garry to win via a decision at the price of 13-8. Then after that, after this fight, if he is successful, I will be probably looking to start fading Ian Garry. This is because I am somebody who follows Ian Garry on Instagram. From my days when I was on reality TV, I knew his wife, who is now his wife, and she was a presenter who covered some of the stuff that I was doing at the time, worked for a magazine, went on to do some work with football, and then moved on to covering combat sports such as karate and MMA. Now, I'm not saying this because I don't like the girl or I don't like Ian Garry. In fact, she's a very nice person. Like, I have absolutely no issues with her or anything. But I do know about elite fighting. And I do know that fighters don't tend to bring their wives around everywhere and put everything on social media and act all loved up and gooey-eyed and generally tend to distract each other all of the time. She is constantly on his social media. He is constantly on her social media. His fight camp doesn't look like an elite fight camp, which a fighter who's supposed to be what Ian Garry's meant to be would be having. He's not signed up to an elite team. He's not having an elite level camp. He's moving around from place to place. He's messing around, canoeing with his wife. He's playing pranks in hotels, leaving pizzas outside of the doors of his teammates. He got to the fighter hotel late this week. He spent the early part of the week staying by a river with his wife and his teammates in a secluded location, with them saying that he preferred to stay somewhere where he could get some real fresh air. Like, all of this sounds fine and it sounds like minor details, but if you look through the social media and if you're close to it, like I am, and you know somebody involved in this, and you compare it to other fighters, especially elite fighters, you just don't see them acting this way. Perhaps he can get away with it. Perhaps I'm going to be wrong. And I'd love to be wrong because, as I said, have no issues with the girl, like the girl. like Ian Garry from what I've seen. Seems like a charismatic guy, seems to have a good look, seems like he should be someone who does well, seems very, very marketable. And if he can get those W's and move up the rankings, he's going to be a huge name. But I'm massively concerned when I compare it to serious fighters that loss is coming, and that loss could act as a wake-up call for Ian Garry to actually start acting like a legitimate and serious MMA fighter, signed to a serious team, having a serious camp. So I think tonight he scrapes through. I think probably gets it done via decision, because that's best for UFC if Ian Garry does continue winning. And I do believe in combat sports that the money sometimes does dictate the outcome. But ultimately, moving forward, I will be circling this as a potential fighter I will be circling him as a potential fighter to fade until he starts taking things a little bit more seriously. Closing out with a lock on the show, we will circle back reluctantly to influencer boxing, and I'm going to go for KSI to win inside the distance. So KSI via TKO KO. As I said, Joe Fournier is a name, but he's not a household name, and KSI is becoming a household name, especially with young kids and teenagers. He's where the money's at. I don't think a decision victory really puts him instead to go on and fight the likes of Jake Paul and Tommy Fury, who he wants next. And I think a knockout does that. Joe Fournier is going to make decent money here from this fight. It is a sellout at Wembley. It's going to do decent money on pay-per-view, whether you like it or not. I'm not particularly a big fan. My son is. We'll be watching this, and hopefully for the sake of this lock, we'll be watching KSI getting the job done via TKO KO, and that selection is available for you at the price of 4 to 5. That's it for me and this edition of The Fight Show. Good luck with all of your bets as always, guys, and thanks for listening.